Well, it's been about a week. How are those New Year's resolutions going? Yes, another year has come and gone. I've been seeing those videos floating around, New Year's resolutions and, perspectives going into 2026 and the like. And I figured this seemed like the perfect excuse to make a video, which I've been thinking about for a little while. Just a little housekeeping episode about future plans, goals, changes for the channels, and little mindset shifts and things like that I've been thinking about and have been slowly implementing over time, but wanted to sort of cement in a video, not just for the audience, but for myself as well, of course. No script here, a couple of notes that I kind of haphazardly jotted down. I felt like that would be, thematically appropriate for the topics of the video, but sort of focusing on the channel and the content itself. Perhaps the biggest thing I've been thinking about is that, especially on this channel, but generally speaking, it's been years since I would have really considered myself prolific in my content or art or anything like that, and that's something that I've been wanting to change. I've been slowly implementing certain things over the past year. For one, just kind of being less perfectionistic about certain things and obviously having more like vlog-based content and like partially edited vlogs. But another thing that I've been doing is implementing a bit more of a solid process through which the videos are created, something that is more efficient and sort of set in stone, but is also simultaneously malleable enough that it will work for basically any type of video that I'm creating, whether it's something based on a show or whether it's sort of like a general topic video essay type of thing. And I do think it's obviously been working. Looking back at the number of videos that I've posted in the past year, I think it's just around 30, and I believe before that, 2023 and 2024 combined, I only had about 30. So that doesn't necessarily mean that equaled more views in the long term. I think I actually got less views and the like overall.
You played yourself.
But I did end up feeling a lot better about my output, which could have yet still probably been a lot higher and a lot better if not for the biggest videos that I made, the freaking payment processor censorship one in particular. That completely destroyed an entire month of productivity, if not more.
I have everything under control.
But perhaps the biggest thing that I've been thinking about is perhaps, the videos that actually got me inspired to start doing this type of video, which would be the human content machine era, the classic digi content that I got into before discovering BGE, which had a little more influence on the actual highly edited video essays. But the idea of a channel which was kind of chaotic, kind of spastically uploading things all the time, almost all centered primarily around anime, but with some variety content. But, the willingness to really pump out a video fast, if that was all that was really necessary to get the idea solidified into a video form. That of course doesn't mean that I want to stop doing like the big fully edited video essays, and this also isn't necessarily the most efficient way to grow the channel. I think the most efficient way would probably just be to make a bunch of highly edited video essays on Freerun and make a bunch of Crunchyroll hate rant videos, which have been pretty consistently the most viewed videos on the channel. But I've been wanting to bring a little more variety. I've also been wanting to kind of bring back the spirit of old tube, what I've been calling old tube as opposed to new tube, just as much as the sort of spirit of the human content machine. I want a little more variety. I want a little more chaos. I want to do a little more to provide the kind of content, the kind of art, the kind of channel that I actually miss and would like to see more of. So, obviously for one, that means that I would like to post more frequently. I'd like to, have a lot of vlogs and partially edited vlogs coming out between the big, like highly edited video essays, specifically about anime in particular, usually. I'd like to cover more topics. I'd like to do more like shit post edits and memes, which I haven't done any of in quite a while. For example, just a little compilation that's sitting in the editing bay that I need to sit down and finish. It's literally just a compilation of every unique Bocchi face in Bocchi the Rock Season 1. I think that would be really funny, and there are obviously lots of other like offshoots of that I could also work on after that one if it's popular. But yeah, I think I totally skipped over this earlier, but another thing that I would like to make more of is just like general topic video essays or general topic vlogs. One thing that I've been wanting to sit down and talk about is the reality that search engines just don't work the way that they used to anymore. And I think it's a really interesting question as to whether search engines really even care about like keyword relevance anymore, and like talk about how this applies not just to Google or YouTube, but also the way that it applies to streaming platforms. Another sort of like general topic thing that I've been wanting to talk about is just a little video essay that I've been thinking about titling "We Have Forgotten Fun," which is kind of like a discussion on the way that social media and also like how the prevalence of like hyper skilled people who are not only really skilled but also only show the best videos they've ever made, how this affects the way that people think about their hobbies and the mentality that has sort of pulled people away from the idea of doing a hobby specifically for fun and like venting and stuff. The way that everything has sort of been commodified. I think a lot of people feel like these things are only worth doing if they can find a way to make money off of them. I think AI is also obviously an interesting part of the equation, and how it has kind of devalued the way that people feel about creating things for the sake of creating them and for the sake of expressing certain ideas. But once again, not to just vomit out the idea of that video into this video, but just another idea of the sort of off-topic thing that I would like to start incorporating into the variety content here. Just as much, obviously, I've been doing the video game live streams, and once again, probably not the most efficient, like pro algorithm approach, because I've literally watched those live streams burn off subscribers right after I got them from the big video essays. But and I could be wrong here, but I think it's smart to do this now instead of like waiting to try and become a chaotic variety content channel later after building an audience off of really consistent, always on topic, always on format videos. I'm sure a lot of people have noticed, like a lot of the largest channels in this segment of YouTube that you see now, every video that they post is basically the same set of topics and subtopics, and every video is the same format. And to a degree, I think a lot of creators are kind of trapped in that. I seen a video recently by Stephen He, where he was talking about how the performance of his channel, not just the new video, but the performance of his channel overall actually dropped like 80% after he tried like a new, like more highly produced video of a different style, bringing in other people to like play certain characters. And obviously, to be fair, him going from like short skit-based content to highly produced, highly scripted content is pretty off-brand and also totally antithetical to the direction that I'm talking about going in. And the show may have just not been that funny to begin with, but let's just ignore that for now for the sake of my point. Because I'd be willing to bet that the fact that the show was so experimental compared to his usual content resulted in YouTube just not really showing it to anyone to begin with, regardless of what the click-through rate or the average view duration may have even been. After all, I've watched Stephen He multiple times, and I didn't even know the show existed because it was never recommended to me once. But I was recommended this video of him talking about it on a random YouTube advice channel that I've literally never watched before, and was recommended said video dozens of times until I finally just gave in and clicked on it. All because I watched like one freaking Nate Black video the other day talking about changes on YouTube, and literally nothing else related to YouTube advice channels, and just that was enough for this video to get blasted in my face dozens of times until I gave in and clicked on it. And as Stephen He said in the video, not only was the experimental content itself punished, the promotion of videos across his entire channel was punished as well. Obviously, I think that it's good that he sort of takes responsibility for this and, tells people like what he thinks went wrong. But I do think people really downplay how much of that effect is the fact that you build a channel off of predictable, consistent content that's always the same topic, that's always the same length, that's always the same format, and then you try to experiment with something that's risky and unpredictable. And the reality is, YouTube literally punishes you for that by just not showing the video to anyone to begin with. And then regardless of how the video is actually performing with the audience that it has been shown to, telling you this video is appealing to a smaller audience. Which begs the question, like, if the video is doing really well with the people that it has been shown to and YouTube refuses to give the video any more impressions, how can you even know that it's appealing to a smaller audience? And I've definitely had this happen to my videos personally. Like, I make something that's different than what I usually do, and because I know that it's different and it's something that hasn't been covered before, I want to really pour over it and make sure that the video is edited to absolute perfection. I post the video. The ghosting and dimming video is the most obvious example of this. It gets like my best average view duration ever. It has like the highest light to view ratio on the channel. The click-through rate is good, but YouTube just won't show anyone the video. It won't give them the opportunity to watch it to begin with because it's just not what I usually do, topically speaking. And I do think that I would rather go ahead and sort of set the expectation while I'm just above 3K subscribers that this is going to be more of a variety channel and it is going to be a little more chaotic. Instead of waiting until the channel like grows really large on the back of just one or two types of content and then trying to course correct because I find myself pigeonholed into a position that I don't really necessarily want to be in. And once again, a lot of this is just the sort of longing for the old tube, the old YouTube appeal that I think many of us came here for, to sort of escape the sort of consistent format, homogenous nature of things like cable television, which so much of YouTube content now just looks like formulaic, homogenous television just on YouTube instead of on television. So like I said, this is definitely going to require a mix of the fully edited video essays, specifically on like specific anime, which I'm sure many people have subscribed for, as well as of course like the big Crunchyroll rant videos. And some of these things are going to be fully edited. Some of them are going to be vlogs. Some of them are going to be somewhere in between, like partially edited vlogs. I think part of this is going to come down to sort of figuring out which videos necessitate more editing and which videos the editing really is only a flourish. Obviously, there are a lot of videos and topics which kind of have like time relevant factors to them. And looking back, like the big payment processor censorship video was probably one of those videos. If I had just made a big vlog, like cut a lot of the unnecessary stuff and not edited it, frankly, it probably would have performed better even if it wouldn't have been as good of a video. I mean, the reality is most of the people who cover this stuff, the moment they see a piece of news, even if they don't really understand it and they haven't done more than 5 minutes of research, they flip on a camera, they yell about it for 10 minutes, they get most of the details wrong, they post it, and they get 100,000 views. Not saying I want to go that far,
because I'm an idiot.
because I just don't even think that's healthy for the conversation. I think that really does a lot to turn away people who don't already agree with the overarching ideas, the big questions. And obviously we could get into a whole thing about rage bait and the like, but maybe save that for another time. The point is to say, if I was covering something like that, I think the important thing would be to do some research, to know what I'm talking about, obviously, but not worry so much about editing it more than is necessary. Another thing that I think I should probably do some thinking about is like when I make a video where there's a certain small subset audience that is going to watch anything on this topic because they're starved for it and no one else is going to be interested in it regardless. That's probably also the type of video that just doesn't really require that much editing, where the editing is just, once again, a sort of unnecessary flourish that would make for a better video but would not make for a better YouTube video, if that makes any sense. And I hate that distinction. I much rather prefer to just try and make good videos, but it's obviously not really feasible given the way that the platform works. I guess the only other thing that I jotted down, I'll probably think of other stuff that I forgot earlier, but the only other thing on this topic, ironically, I think to make more content, I need to spend more time consuming more anime,
By long and far, the hardest thing about my job is watching anime.
consuming more video games, and obviously consuming news around the topics that I want to cover, you know, as it concerns streaming platforms, piracy, censorship, these sorts of things. And so a big part of that, which I think is a good mindset shift, generally speaking, for anyone, regardless of what you're doing, is just not getting caught in decision paralysis, analysis paralysis, like spending a bunch of time trying to decide which thing to tackle. I do think the old saying, like, don't ask, act, is pretty important in this way. Like, you're trying to decide what to watch right now. It's really better not to spend an hour just trying to decide, just watch something that you're sure you'll like, right? Once again, as that applies to video creation, I do think it's important to do more than 5 minutes of research on a video that is making factual claims. And I guess that does bring back to the point earlier, like the distinction between a video that requires a bunch of pre-production and one that doesn't should also be a factor for the question, like, is this a video that makes a lot of factual claims that should be researched, or is this simply like an opinion rant type of thing? Those are obviously two totally different types of videos, and I do think that they should be approached differently. But anyway, that's a whole, you know, inside baseball rabbit hole that we could go down, but maybe people find that interesting. I do think that's, you know, part of the way that I would like to think about which videos to really spend a lot of time making super, like, highly edited and polished versus which videos it is okay to just, you know, flip on the camera and record it and post it. Just because I want this, you know, video to exist, I want this to be part of the conversation, and it isn't something that necessarily requires, you know, a bunch of fact-checking pre-production before I, once again, flip on the camera. Insert that earlier in.
Yeah.
Well, I just received some sushi, and I'm guessing hibachi steak here. So whether that's all that I had or not, I guess that's it for now.
How much food can a human being eat? One has to ask, where have we been? Where are we going?
Bring me another! Another!
And welcome to part 2, where I walk off my food and realize that I don't really know where I'm supposed to hold this gorilla pod. I figured walking would be fitting enough here because obviously some important goals for the new year are to work a little harder to stay in shape. I've been increasing my cardio output. That is definitely one thing that I've been focusing on more recently, but I've been slacking pretty hard on even that recently because holidays, all that chicken and ham and turkey and pies, and then it gets cold and I just want to snuggle up inside and do nothing, to be honest with you. But one thing that has been helping a lot, I've been using this little app called Pacer. Pacer is kind of like the Google step tracking app, but Pacer is more like, it's built a little more like a Duolingo style app. Like, it's Duolingo, but Duolingo for learning to walk more. So you have these 10,000 step goals that you have to reach every day to keep up your freaking daily mission streak thing. But another thing that I've really been enjoying is that it actually has these like competition brackets that you get placed into. So, you know, you can move up from bronze to silver to gold, all the way up to obsidian and platinum. I think currently I'm in obsidian, and that's kind of where I've been stuck for a couple of weeks now. But this has been really helpful, you know, for me, myself, kind of, you know, going full gamified on the idea of getting my steps in every day, getting my cardio in every day. It has been really helpful, and it's made it fun. It's made it a lot more fun than it was before. Oh yeah, one thing I'm pretty sure I forgot to bring up is the fact that time spent working to get in shape and stay in shape actually also just makes everything else in life that much easier. Like, I know sometimes it's easy for artistically minded people such as myself to convince ourselves that time spent getting in cardio or working out is time spent not working on our art. But I have always found that if I've been consistently putting in the work to get in shape, stay in shape, do these things regularly, daily, the art comes that much easier. Like, I feel better, I'm more focused, I'm able to work for longer, harder, more focused, more consistently. But anyway, I just throw that in somewhere. Anyway, speaking of Duolingo and Duolingo adjacent apps, another thing that I would really like to put a little more time and effort into this year is stepping up my game in learning Japanese. I've been doing Duolingo for quite a while, but the reality is that I'm going to talk about this more in a future video, but it isn't the best way to efficiently and quickly learn Japanese. And I do also think, although the gamified approach is really helpful, unfortunately Duolingo is kind of like a poorly balanced game where you're heavily incentivized to keep up your daily streak and earn XP points and keep up your friend streaks and the like, but Duolingo is kind of broken in the sense that you can just kind of do a couple of reviews every day, and they almost count for more than like the actual learning part of the process. Like, the most important thing in the Duolingo app for someone who's just starting is to learn the Japanese alphabet, but the hiragana and katakana courses, they don't count towards like a goal such as do your next lesson. They don't count towards that. They also don't get you a lot of experience, and like the best experience you can get is literally just like doing a bunch of reviews like as soon as you get on. And the reviews obviously aren't helping you to actually learn anything new. So yeah, Duolingo, kind of like a poorly balanced game. I don't think it's totally useless. I'm not one of those guys. But, and once again, I'm going to talk about this more in a future video, but what I have discovered recently is there's a little known app/website called Renchu, which I really think is Duolingo if Duolingo was less focused on making money and going viral and more focused on like really helping people to learn a language. Renchu is also Japanese specific, and it's very thorough. Like there are hiragana flashcards, katakana flashcards. You can learn kanji through it. You can learn your grammar through it. It has like space repetition system, vocabulary lessons as well. And it even has like cool little mini games. Like you can play Shiritori with people on Duolingo, so you can do like little Japanese vocabulary based games in it. There are like little gotcha rewards for learning Japanese in Renchu. Another thing that's really awesome about Renchu is, whereas Duolingo is like, as far as I can tell, it's all like AI generated voices, Renchu has real recordings of native Japanese speakers like saying the words and reading the sentences and the like, which is obviously much better than some AI voice generations that don't always necessarily get things right. Is that all I have to say about Renchu? I mean, basically my point is just freaking use it. Like, Renchu is like Anki and Duolingo had a baby, and then some, to be completely honest, and I need to be doing it more. The only thing that I think would be kind of a, let's just call it a culture shock, if you were to say, go straight from Duolingo to Renchu, you'll immediately notice that Renchu is not full of constant sound effects, like constantly, perking up your dopamine centers to keep you going. But in my opinion, Duolingo has been getting really out of control with those lately. Like, there's just constant. The moment you do like a single lesson, you get hit with like 10 like massive sound effects that are all spaced out. Like, it's got to take like 20-25 seconds just to get through the sound effects after your first lesson of the day. You could be halfway through another review or another lesson at that point. But anyway, that's all to say, that one of my other, just like general goals that I would like to focus on this year is just getting more serious about learning Japanese. Once again, I wouldn't only do Renshu. I still think that Anki, or something like Anki, something with spaced repetition, like vocabulary flashcards, is really helpful. A lot of people are big into Wanikani and stuff like that. I know there are also a couple of like online applications that allow you to, basically look up words that are on the web page that you're looking at. There's one that like translates on screen, like both the Japanese and English version of shows on Netflix, as well as other shows. I can't remember the name of these at the moment, unfortunately. So I'll just throw them on screen here. Here's another good goal for the year. Drink more water. Whoo, man. I don't know if I'm gonna keep all these in. I don't know where I would really put them all, but man, that is just beautiful. I really love watching sunset. I'm sure that's something a lot of people can relate to. Much in the same way that I said, I think that staying in shape makes artistic work and work, generally speaking, easier. I would also argue that learning a language, for example, time spent doing that, even on, these electronic devices that we carry with us everywhere, is much the same, like especially opposed to doom scrolling on Twitter, for example. I've always found that after I've spent time, even if it's just like 5, 10, 15 minutes working on learning a language, I feel better afterwards, and like the thing that I do afterwards feels more effortless and feels better to do, as opposed to the soul-sucking, soul-draining feeling of doom scrolling on Twitter before or in between or during, like the time spent trying to work on something. It's just a completely different feeling, much in the same vein, once again, as time and energy spent working out, keeping the mind and the body both simultaneously healthy. It's time well spent, and it makes everything else in life that much easier. But anyway, that's my soapbox, and obviously advice that I myself could do more to learn from this year as well. Anyway, back to wherever I was in the video. I think I just threw dirt in my eyes. Drink more water. So what else have we got? One big thing, like kind of in the same vein as the content on this channel, is that I would like to finish more music. I think that a lot of the lessons that I've been learning and trying to apply to the anime and stuff channel is applicable to the music. Kind of building a consistent process that can deliver results quickly, but is also malleable enough to, be applicable to music, whether you're making like lo-fi hip-hop beats or synthwave, or what I've been working on more recently, a lot more, like ambient backing tracks, which I post over on a channel called CTN Backing Tracks, formerly Composing the Narrative. So building templates that you can kind of quickly get a project started with is important, but also just like I believe I was talking about earlier with the mainline content on this channel, another important thing is to be able to just not be such a perfectionist, not be quite as neurotic as I most certainly am, not to get stuck in analysis paralysis, like trying to, make a decision that you should be able to make quickly, spending far too much time on that kind of thing. Another important thing about processes, I was saying earlier, this is certainly applicable to other processes, but in music, the idea that you should write and then you should mix, this is a pretty important idea, I think. you don't want to cross these two things together. And well, I'm sure this is applicable to other things, but like if you're writing and then you're mixing and then you're writing and then you're mixing and then you're writing and then you're mixing, that's not going to be efficient. Much in the same way, like when I'm editing one of these anime videos that I make, like it's important, I think, to segment the process out in a way such as one thing that I've been doing recently. Once I get my audio edited in a video, I just listen to the video back, and when I think of a piece of footage or like a type of footage, even if that type of footage is just, you know, footage of Freerun smiling, even if that's all that I've got in mind, just make a chapter marker, make a note right in that spot, and then do that for the entire video. If you don't know what to put somewhere, just keep listening and keep moving until you hear something that makes you say, okay, I know what to put here. Then, once you've made chapter markers for all of that, then you start adding footage. Then, when you've done that once or twice, depending on how well it's working, then you start filling in the gaps. And you don't worry about it being perfect.
You don't worry about getting it perfect, and you also don't worry about working in sequential order if it isn't working. Don't allow yourself to get stuck on one part where you don't know what to do. Feel free to jump around if that's working faster.
You just get a rough draft done. You can apply the same logic to writing a script, obviously. This is like, funny enough, you could think of this the same way that a lot of the actually useful stuff that we learned in school was, like when you were making a rough draft of an essay that you were working on, and then you got a bunch of notes, and then you like actually worked on improving it and turning it into a real final product. Segmenting out the parts of a project that you're working on into an order that makes sense and is repeatable regardless of what project you're working on or what type of project you're working on. And, you know, making sure that the first version of something you make doesn't have to be perfect. You can always change things. Most of the things that we work on these days are like what they call non-destructive editing. So you want to take advantage of that. The whole point of that, though, is that there are so many little things that I think are cross-disciplinary, like lessons that you learn in one art form or process often do apply to other things that you might be doing, if you just think about it.
That's it. That's all I want. Just think about it.
I know a lot of people think that, you know, learning to play an instrument well doesn't help you to learn something that seems unrelated in another area of art, but I completely disagree. I think if you learn to be efficient in, as I've said, video editing, there are ways that can help you learn how you could be efficient in music writing, for example. And I think that the more people learn, the more they learn the particular way that they learn well and efficiently. But that's just like my opinion, dude. Drink more water. And touch some grass, literally. I know I always feel better after a short walk, especially when I've been sitting in front of the computer for a long time. It's relaxing, it's peaceful. Get away from the screen. Not only do you get away from the screen, which I do think is somewhat bad for your eyes, but also you get into an environment where you get to look off into the distance, which I think is actually the important part. I think there have been some studies about this, like going outside and using the muscles in your eye that are used to actually like focus on things that are off in the distance instead of a screen that's like 6 inches from your eyes. I think that's pretty important. It seems to make sense to me. But is there anything else that I'm actually forgetting that actually makes sense to put in this video? I feel like there's almost certainly some stuff that I forgot for the first part of the video, which is really what's bothering me. But you know, perhaps that's part of the overarching theme of this. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be very well edited. And if it's incomplete, I can always just make another video. I can always remake this video.
That's never gonna happen, ever, ever.
And I can always just splice something in later when I think about it. But anyway, can I flip this around? I hope that this is as beautiful on the screen as it is right. Oh yeah, look at that, look at that. Those beautiful, beautiful chemtrails. It is gorgeous though. I love the jet streams mixed in with the clouds, all blurred together with the sunset. Oh yeah, look at that. Gorgeous. And to think, right now, somewhere, someone is reading a chapter of Rent-A-Girlfriend instead of touching some grass, looking at the sunset, recording a new terrible video. It's nice though. This is definitely one of the highlights of my day. I need to start recording more like this, you know, off the cuff vlogs. I often have that thought at a given moment that there's an idea that I should get down, that there's a show I'd like to talk about, and I just say I'll do it later. And it'll have to be edited, and there'll be all this work involved. But like, I really could just walk around the pond and yap for a while. I think this is a bit nicer than sitting in front of the computer anyway. And I get to my cardio. I get to do my cardio at the same time. It's a wonderful, like 200% bonus to my productivity, as long as I don't fall over. Anyway, hope that you've enjoyed this. And hope that I didn't forget anything, but if I did, who cares, right? But anyway, peace and Happy New Year. Hope that you've been enjoying the videos on this channel. And yeah, let's look forward to a good season of anime, hopefully. Freeren's coming back. That's obviously probably going to look a lot different, but I bet it's going to be fun regardless. Whatever it might be, just trying to always go into these things with an open mind. Anyway, talk to you later.